to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric and I'll be your host for this evening where we will be reviewing Ready or Not. It's a movie about the Schnars family tree. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me tonight, first up from Indiana, please welcome Casey.
Oh.
Got part of that from Hotlanta, Georgia, our resident artist. Please welcome Cece.
Hello.
You know how artists are, John. They're all, moody and, demanding.
They're like
Yeah.
CC.
Next.
I'm sorry. I
Next.
just like to keep you on your toes.
Next up on the show, he's from Chicago, drinks beer. Please welcome Joe.
Boys got butt parts.
That's
a
true.
fact.
They do, unfortunately. Last up on the show tonight from Manhattan, New York City. John was doing a little reviewing of his family lineage after this movie. He just wanted to check the rituals, the family rituals. He was like, this seems a little weird that we do hunt these people all the time. Maybe, is there a reason? Is there like the devil involved? Or
We don't question.
I can't wait to be invited to those family outings, John.
I
I'm
know.
looking forward to the next picnic.
I know, that sounds great. Oh, Joe,
That's
if
true.
you were invited, Joe, that's bad news for you.
Wow.
No,
you shouldn't.
Look, what are you talking about? My fourth cousin Joe.
Yeah, in the family.
Joe, have you ever seen Surviving the Game?
now.
Seen
no,
how
I don't
with
think so.
Ice-T?
Oh, I have. Yeah.
I've seen how this story plays out. Joe, what did you discover about your family tree recently? I know you kind of talked about it on the show, right?
We talked about it a couple weeks ago when I hosted, but not till the end, and I assume by that point everybody had turned off and deleted the download.
For their own sanity.
So I learned two things. One, not surprisingly, I am exactly what I've always thought my background is, which is Lithuanian and Polish. Really, I wanted to find out that I was Norwegian so I could get the cool stuff at Epcot, or,
You just wanted to be into black Norwegian death metal.
exactly, or just part Hispanic to upset my relatives. So that was a big bummer. for me to
sorry,
find out.
I didn't need you. I was already Hispanic.
Good luck, guys. But so that was a bummer that I've got nothing. But then I start scrolling through relatives, and I see a third cousin with the last name Schnars, which
Right.
which
Which,
apparently John is insisting he doesn't know, but I'm pretty sure.
I mean,
he does.
Joe, serious question. Have you ever, before or since meeting Schnars, ever met another Schnars?
No,
Yeah,
never.
they don't exist.
Well,
Except
so
his
no,
wife.
you know what's funny? Because I was thinking about this after you sent it to me, and we haven't obviously talked about it. I know there are Schnarses in upstate New York because I have, I think it was my dad's mom originally was born in upstate, and there was
You're gonna
a.
have
if
to
you- if you
clarify
s-
what you're saying. When you say that as a New York City person, John, what you mean?
Well, yeah, no, and I don't. That's the thing. I don't know exactly. I've done very little research on this, but there is if you search my name, Jon, and Schnars, there's actually a guy who played football at Oswego, and
Or
comes up.
Oswego, as most people call it.
I don't know.
Oswego, a fancy
Oswego.
John.
How do you? Wait, am I saying it wrong?
Oswego, the
Is it
Carpathian.
Yeah.
As we go, so does the nation, Jim.
Ah,
There you go. So, yeah.
Interesting.
So there you go, Joe. They could
I
just
don't-
be down the road from you.
It's a very it's not a common name.
No.
So if you meet a
Definitely not.
Charnews in America or anywhere really, you 100% were related.
In
There's only
fact,
about 7 of us.
I've never met another one of those. Yeah, I've never met one of those.
Well,
There's
you
not
know his brother and parents, presumably.
yeah.
No, I don't think I've met either actually.
No, probably not.
No.
Oh, that's so weird.
Why?
You guys.
Why is that weird?
I don't know. You're like your brothers hung out like it.
Yeah, he wasn't my friend growing up. He was my brother's friend.
Yeah,
No offense, Joe.
It's not
I
like my
just-
parents would drop me off at their house and
Yeah.
then go into Eric's
It's
room
not
and
like I
hang
was like,
out.
it's not like I was like, you're not allowed to be friends with. I need to go meet this guy's parents if he's going to be coming over.
All right.
Hi, Mr. Noel, your younger son. Noel.
Hi, Joe. I'm 6 years old. Can I meet your parents?
So, real
Like,
quick,
what?
just because this reminded me, we went and saw Goonies at the drive-in on Saturday, and like pretty much there's this field in front of the movie screen. So Mia was up there playing. 10 minutes later, she comes back with this kid, um, and proceeds to get into our minivan with him. And Leslie's like, do you have to go tell your parents where you are? And he's like, no, I can go wherever I want here. And then Leslie and I just look at it as like, so now we have like a small boy in our minivan. Like,
Wait, was it like age appropriate though? Like, was he also of a
to me his age? It was just like, I don't know what to do about this. Like,
How long did he stay?
maybe like 20 minutes.
Oh,
It turns out this like
that's-
8-year-old also had a cell phone that his parents could call him on.
20 minutes seems like a long time.
Yeah,
To be honest.
it's yeah.
I
I
caught
feel
a-
like, yo, I am trying to enjoy Goonies over here. Kid.
Joe, what did Mia think of Goonies?
She was a little scared at first. Really, she didn't like the gunshots,
It's
obviously.
a
But
little scary.
yeah,
What
once
about
they got into like the adventure type stuff, she was all in. It was not like concerned by sloth and in any way, which kind of made me happy.
Oh, well, how would a
What about
young...
the hand blending? The the blender scene? That was always the one that I feel like was kind
And
of.
then I sure puked everywhere.
Yeah, by then she was actually laughing hysterically at Chunk and like him kind of doing this thing about how he
Uh-huh.
made people throw up and stuff. So she was in by that point.
Chunk. Good old Chunk. A friend of mine met Chunk on he was like somewhere in the Caribbean or something. There's like a tropical vacation and he met Chunk. He just happened to be out there also on vacation. But when people found out who he was, people would just basically harass him until he did the truffle shuffle. Like he
Oh my
couldn't
God.
he couldn't get out of
He's
it.
on vacation.
And he's like a lawyer.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's like an older person now.
Yeah,
Like,
that's brutal, dude.
ah,
I caught a
yeah.
little bit of Goonies on. I was at my parents this weekend. I caught a little bit of Goonies on cable, Joe, because I don't have cable. So when I'm at my parents, like I just like to take in just garbage cable stuff as much as I can. So I was posted up on Friday afternoon. I had a couple hours to myself, and on MTV and Spike, I had a straight shot of Bar Rescue and Ridiculousness, and I was just like flipping back and forth.
Who's that Rob? What's his name there?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the host so much, but I do like
No.
watching videos of people hurting themselves, and it's just that on a loop for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean that
so.
never gets old. But yeah, I don't care for that. I used to like that Robin Big show that he was on. I thought
It's
those two were funny
mostly
together.
the ridiculousness is mostly just for the breaks of Bar Rescue. Like I don't need to see commercials because that's also
Bar
really
Rescue's
jarring when you don't have cable anymore and all you do is stream, and then you're watching cable and a commercial comes on and you're just like, it's like when I watch Big Brother now. I'm like, what do I do now?
It is very concerning. Like anytime we watch something live, not on DVR.
Like, what
like,
did we used to do? Did we just sit there and watch commercials like schmucks?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
God, what the hell?
I got into it with my kids the other day because on Netflix, I don't know if you guys watch the kids stuff on Netflix or if your kids do.
Oh yeah.
A lot of them have like end credits where it's all the translation teams that did all the different. So the credits end up being a full minute long or something, and my kids were legit like, change it to the next one. I don't want to wait. And I was like,
Wow.
we used to sit through minutes full of commercials. You
Yeah.
will sit there and you will watch the screen. So they didn't really appreciate it, but
I get
Anyway.
mad when Netflix gives me the option to skip the intro to a show. I love show
What?
intros. I don't care if I'm
Really?
I don't care if I'm watching 12 hours of a show. I want to see that goddamn intro every single
I
time.
don't know.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going hard the other direction.
Are
on
you
this
kidding
one.
Yeah,
me?
hard in on the skip intro, but
I've been binging Cheers, and I'm telling you, like, I do not need to know where everybody knows your name.
Are you kidding me, Joe? That's like you have. Are you joking?
It's
It
like
was
20
enjoyable for like the first 18
Nah,
episodes.
like
but,
especially The
like,
Office. Like I want to hear The Office one every time.
Yeah, I guess I
That
get
one's short though. The Office
Wouldn't
one's
you
really
like
short.
to
sometimes.
get away?
You know what's weird is
Do-do-do,
the guy who
do,
wrote the Cheers song also wrote the Punky Brewster theme song.
where everybody knows your
And once you know
name.
that, it kind of ruins the Cheers song for you.
And they're always glad
Not
you
for Eric,
came.
apparently.
Dun, dun,
She's
dun,
just
dun.
muted the rest of us.
You want to know where? Okay. What else is going on? I don't know. I just have
We
a
got a gathering coming in
Yeah.
less than a month now.
broken box of
T-minus,
T-shirts showed up
like
today, huh, Joe?
3 weeks.
Yeah,
A
yeah,
bo- a
we're
box of-
about 3 weeks out. So September 21st, that's a Saturday at 4 p.m. Crown Liquors here in Chicago. It's the BGH Spooktoberfest.
We're so close. It's very exciting.
So last Friday I went and met with the guy from Crown Liquors, as well as our amazing listener Elisa, who works for 21st Amendment, who is going to be on hand there also. And we kind of went over some of the details, and I am super pumped and a lot more relaxed now that we've kind of done that. So Shelton's going to be on hand. He's going to be doing trivia again. So the event starts at 4. The bar opens at 4. So we're probably going to start trivia around like 5, even like 5:30. Pretty much they told us we've got free reign from 4 to 8 to do whatever the hell we want. So 21st Amendment's going to be on hand. There's going to be a ton of their beers on tap. There's going to be beer specials. They're going to be doing tastings. They're going to be giving away some swag. We're going to be doing raffles, trivia. There's going to be prizes for that. A whole ton of stuff going on, and then a few other things that we talked about that are still kind of in the works, but I am very excited. It's going to be a lot more fun than I led you guys to believe originally.
Oh, okay.
So and also, if you're a Patreon, on the 20th, the night before, we're having a little special meetup for folks at any level. That's in Chicago as well at 7:00. If you become a Patreon, you get all the info for that. So really looking forward to that. We've got about 19 confirmed people, I think, for Friday night outside of the BGH folks. We do have some bad news to share for the gathering, and I will let Cece break the news to everybody.
I mean, I'd rather you just say it.
So
is it that Kyle can't come? Kyle's not coming.
Yeah,
I guess.
basically Kyle's not coming.
So
That means
based
I'm
on
not
like
coming
a few
either.
weeks ago, Cece and I, we had this little sort of tiff. So I've kind of put my foot down and said that, I'd prefer she not come. So she respected the decision.
I just need boundaries. I can respect them once they've been established.
But you'll be there in spirit, Cece. We will
Yes,
definitely
I will.
time you. And also, I got these super cool T-shirts in the mail today. If you're on the live feed, you can see they're beautiful. They came. This is, I think, a men's medium. Which all the horror fans can probably fit into.
That was my order, Joe. I don't know what you're talking about.
They're Newell sizes. CC will be represented by her beautiful designs.
Yes, exactly.
Are they? What kind of shirts are they?
The sleeves.
What does the label say? Are they Gildan shirt? What does the label say on the inside? I'm curious.
They're sleeved.
Next level apparel.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know what size I am. I'm gonna have to try some on.
Yeah, we've got a lot.
And then if one doesn't fit, then a lucky BGH listener gets to wear my shirt that I tried on. That's pretty.
John and I have been tossing around of ordering special ones just for us, so people know that we're obviously better than them.
Good God.
Yeah.
All
right.
I wanted to let everyone know that Joe was exceedingly nervous about the Crown Liquors event because we hadn't heard from the guy in a while.
Oh my God, yeah.
It was like every day I would check him and Joe like, hey, how you doing over there? He'd be like, I haven't heard from him. He was starting to get really worked up.
We're good though, Joe.
So I actually talked to him about it while he's there. He's like, you know what? I mean, he runs a bar, so he gets just like a ton of spam. So he's like, I hardly ever check that email account, so just text me. So now I have an in with him now.
Okay.
Which is exactly what I told Joe. Just to be clear, I was like, look, man, not everyone sits in front of their computer all day like you and I do. So
I know I have to remind myself. I have to like think sometimes about who this person is I'm emailing, like, and if they're not responding right away, is that a problem or not?
Yeah.
But I seriously cannot thank Elisa enough. Like, she has been a huge help. She hooked us up with Crown Liquors. She is apparently going to hook up the BGH team in our Airbnbs with some beer from the good folks at 21st Amendment.
Hey,
so awesome stuff. I'm very excited.
What could go wrong?
One of my favorite breweries, and I would say that even if they weren't, helping support this event.
Yeah.
The best part of this meeting on Friday too is she brought just like a ton of samples. So she also works for Funkworks and Brooklyn, their distribution here in Chicago. So had like a pumpkin beer. It was actually the first time I drank beer in about 2 weeks because the wife and I have gone low carb. But
what have you been drinking?
A lot of gin and seltzer.
Do we have a keto Guido situation on our hands?
I've been peeing. I've been peeing, taking the test.
Oh, nice.
Oh my, what? There's
So
a
they have
pee test?
Well, there's
a Guido test.
These strips.
Yeah, because you want to know if you're in like ketosis or something.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, apparently those don't actually work. Like, they also could just be triggered because you're dehydrated. So, but whatever.
But it makes
I-
Joe feel better.
I've dropped like 10 pounds this week. So
You look great,
something's-
Joe.
Thanks,
Well,
man.
Joe, thank you for all of your hard work putting this together and on behalf of the entire BGH solar system. And needless to say, if you see Joe at the meetup, you should thank him and you should give him a big hug because he loves when people hug him.
You're-
Skin to skin contact.
If it's one thing we
Yep.
know about Joe, he's a big old softie.
The biggest way you can thank me is by a firm wave from across the room.
And then he's still going to go hand sanitize.
A politely worded tweet, even though we're in the same room.
Although I joke about it, but if like somebody walks through my work and I have to meet them and I shake their hands, I'm just like, how long do I have to wait until I can walk out of the room and go wash my hands?
God.
Because I'm not going to touch
there's
my
people I'll hug.
I'm
but,
not
like,
going to
I-
immediately touch my computer because then their germs have now been transferred onto my computer.
There's filth everywhere.
Oh,
It's
like
not a
literally an
germs thing,
intern-
It's just like
An intern candidate was in last week and he had like the slimiest, sweatiest hands and I shook them and I was literally just staring at my hand while he's in the room, just like, bro, are you for real?
We had a sales rep from a vendor who was a hugger, and it caught me off guard after like 23 years in IT. I'd never been hugged by a vendor.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
workplace is not really the place for a hug unless it's like, you know,
Exactly.
you're mutually giving signals that it's okay.
You know, it's funny. I dated this girl from Long Island for about 4 years after I graduated college, and
Do you
her
want-
family was like super huggers.
Do you want to dox her before you tell us?
Yeah. So I got kind of used to it, and my family's not super close, but I saw my aunt for like the first time in 2 years, and I went in and hugged her, and she looked at me like I was a psychopath. Just like,
Oh, Joe, listen, man. I know your family doesn't hug, but you just gotta give it. This one of my favorite parts about when we all get together is like, you know, we're good friends. We've been friends for like literally over a decade now, and like Joe just gives into the hugs even though he doesn't like it. But you can tell he's kind of like, all right, man, okay.
yeah, I mean, I won't shoot anyone down, but like if given the choice, like you know, I'm not gonna hug you. Unless
Anyway.
it's like your funeral or your wedding or your kid was just born.
You're gonna
like,
hug
those
someone
are-
at the funeral?
Unless
That's
it's
fucked
Kyle.
up.
Yeah, there's huggable occasions like that.
You just
Kyle,
gotta
you're like a
whoa,
firm handshake.
wait a second.
Like, hey, your hair looks great.
You gave the bro hug. where
Joe,
y'all
are
did
you
the,
just gonna, like-
bat pat?
Joe, are you
Yeah,
just
but-
gonna lean into the casket and give him a hug? I'm confused with this funeral scenario. 'Cause that seems even.
They're there.
I mean, it seems less messed up to just hug a live person.
Good game, bud.
If I'm being honest. It was funny. I mean, not funny because it's obviously very sad that Cece's not going to be there. But we were driving home from vacation, and my wife was reading me the text while I was driving, and she's like, "Should I write back like, oh, is Kyle going?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Joe will do it. Give him 5 seconds to read the text."
Yeah.
And literally it was like, "Oh," she's like, "I see him typing," and then it came through. And
Yep.
I still think you should come. I mean,
I told him. So I don't know. Work's a little, you know, AT&T bought Time Warner, so work's a little stressy right now for him.
Mhm.
works stupid.
It's probably for the
You
best.
know what? You
It's,
know what de-stresses? Man time.
Yeah, man, time.
it's probably for the
Way to
best
go.
because you know we would get him hammered and then like make him call you at like 2 a.m. or something so we could all like yell into the phone.
Yeah. Ah, the 10-year, Kyle's the one who introduced me to the beautiful gin and tonic, which I had
That's
never.
true.
Like
Take
that,
it before.
like that time we.
Just imagine what he could have introduced you to this time.
Like that time we Skyped you at Denny's.
Yeah. You're in my hometown, Kyle. Now I'm gonna show you something.
Okay, guys. Joe,
Yeah, what's up?
speaking of your torrid one-way love affair with Cece's husband, why don't you tell us what we're drinking tonight?
Beer guts.
Is it one way? I feel like it's reciprocated.
Okay, it's a very reciprocated relationship.
Okay.
It is like Kyle and I like legit text each other now without like including CC.
So weird.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
It's a thing.
Because when I text the two of them, it's like I'm the only one texting, and then they start texting on their own group chat, and I'm
Schnars.
like, oh, guys.
Schnars, can I have your wife's number? I'm gonna start texting her off air. Just
No, she
just
does
like
not want to hear from you.
I think we can let her decide. Okay.
I feel like John's wife and I could probably have some good text chats also about.
She would want to hear from Joe, actually. So
I'm
the fuck?
sorry, Eric. I'm a full package.
It's bullshit.
So, what are we, Ready or Not? A fine film, which we'll get into the details of, but pretty much the setup is this family needs to do some murdering, before the sun comes up. And in honor of that, I picked a beer from some folks just one state over in Wisconsin. This is New Glarus Brewing Company, and this is their Break O Day, which is a New England IPA. Which is a style I think I've talked about a handful of times. I'm a big fan. Super, super juicy. You'll hear people talk about this style of beer. So pretty much New England IPAs are, I want to say, like, the last couple of years, maybe 3, they've become very popular. Just about every brewery's putting them out at this point. They're a lot more drinkable than kind of your West Coast. Like, they definitely have that hop aroma and flavor, but it's not so, like, punching you in the face with the bitterness. A lot of times you'll hear people refer to New England IPAs as sessionable, which means you can kind of sit down and drink them one after another. This one comes in at 6.3% alcohol, so a little bit higher than what you would typically call a session beer. Like, the idea is you can sit on your back porch and like drink these all night without getting hammered. 6.3, that'll you have 4 or 5, you're gonna start feeling pretty good. But very, like, almost refreshing, I want to say, but still with sort of that nice hop aroma. I really love this one. New Glarus kind of has this like cult following, especially in the Midwest here, because you can only get it in Wisconsin. Like, people from my area will drive to the border and pick up their stuff and bring it back. So everything they put out is great. newglarusbrewing.com is their website, if I remember correctly, and wholeheartedly recommend it. If you're coming into town for the meetup, maybe take an hour and a half detour outside and go check out the brewery, because it's super, super nice as well. And yeah, there you go.
Very nice. Thank you for that, Joe.
Thank you.
Very excited.
I'm excited too, man.
I was just thinking about, where's our last meetup? Milwaukee?
Milwaukee, Wisconsin,
I
yeah.
was just thinking about how that airport is filled with Packers stuff. It's just like cheesehead stuff
Wow.
everywhere.
Wait till you see O'Hare.
I've been.
It's not just the Bears. That's the thing. They have like a lot of teams, obviously, in Chicago. So
I've been to Chicago for Mark's wedding. Remember?
yeah.
I was there.
I mean, people in the Midwest, at least from the areas I've seen, are just like ridiculously into their sports teams.
Yeah.
Like they don't just wear the
Yeah.
shirt; they wear like the T-shirt, the hat,
Well, what else are
like
you gonna do?
skids from like years ago. Like, no, but like all at once. Like, they're not.
Zubaz.
Yeah, they're not subtle about it.
Oh, they're not, because I am still listening to people all over my Facebook whine and piss and moan about Andrew Luck retiring in the preseason.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a tough break there in old Indianapolis.
Yeah.
What are you gonna
Okay.
do?
All right, guys. Let's
Sell
do
those
it.
jerseys.
Are you ready, John, or not?
Oh, zing!
All right, guys. Let's
Question
take
mark?
a quick break and discuss ready or not.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Got the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back. John Schnars.
Mm-hmm.
How many of the people in this movie do you think worked at the rare book library at Duke when they went to college?
I'm assuming they did not have to get work-study jobs
That's
like
true,
yours
that's true.
truly. So, probably not many.
Oh, you had to get that fancy library job? Oh, yeah?
Yeah, no, it was a work-study job that, you basically make minimum wage and pay off your loans. It's a good time.
Fun story, John. When I was my summer job after my freshman year was working in my dad's office, and it was the first time I'd ever had like a T1 line, because it was like, it was like a business line.
Yeah.
And I basically spent the whole summer just reading horror sites, and that was the summer that I decided to make my own horror site. And that's what became a Bloody Good Horror, because I was not working at that job.
It all was born there. Yeah. Well,
And now we have a website that you can read while not working at your job.
Should we send your dad's office like a basket of flowers?
Well,
Like
it
from the
doesn't.
patrons?
That one doesn't exist anymore.
But
But
I wonder if it had anything to do with those shitty interns they're hiring.
I was just the, it was just
Sweaty sons
I
of
was just the
bitches.
like nepotism hire.
Yeah.
Although the funny thing was, everyone else was way easy on me, but my dad, who was a partner, was just like, make him do things, and they were just like, oh, it's fine.
Well, they were like, yeah, we don't want to like upset the boss's son, kind of situation,
Yeah.
probably, or the boss. We don't want to, upset the boss.
All right, John.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the boss in your house?
It's sort of an equal situation.
Okay, sure thing, buddy. All right,
Don't
please
believe
bring
that.
us the word of the day.
Amazing.
Equal. You're funny, dude.
Eric, today's word is covenant.
Ooh.
Covenant.
Hmm.
Covenant can simply mean an agreement. Legally, it can be a contract drawn up by deed, a clause in a contract, and here's one that it's probably not like super connected to the movie, but in theology, you will see a covenant as an agreement which brings about a relationship of commitment between God and His people.
Oh.
Wow.
Mhm. The Jewish faith is based on the biblical covenants made with Abraham, Moses, and David.
I think you mean
It actually says that.
I think you mean covenant, right?
COVID.
Yes, covenant.
Yeah.
And what does that have to do with this movie?
So, covenant. Ready or not, Joe sort of teed this up. We have a family. We have the I'm gonna butcher this, but the Ledomas, I think is how they pronounced it.
2 movies this year with like dumbass puns with names. Remember
Yeah,
that?
I mean, do you think that's what it is?
I don't know, but it was weird, right? Like, it just made me think of Tales from the Hood too. Because wasn't
yeah,
that guy's
that's-
name like Mr. Dumas or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like
Yeah.
that was real on the nose. If that's what they were going for here, it's a little more subtle. We can get into it later. I was curious if CC had any thoughts about so just really quickly, the Ledomas family runs a gaming empire. And what we come to learn is that the gaming empire is built on a covenant. Here you go. Between the great grandfather of the patriarch, the patriarch, who met a man named Labale, Mr. Labale, who, to cut to the chase, Labale, sort of the devil. And so great grandfather Le Domas makes a covenant with the devil, and there's some weird rules in there, but in essence, if they follow sort of Labale's direction and his guidance, they will have success. And so this has led to this gaming empire that they've built. And essentially, when we meet them, they are having a wedding for their, I want to say, youngest son, Alex. He is marrying Grace, played by Samara Weaving. And we see it's very much sort of this like super upper crust, like waspy isn't even the right. They're not waspy. I don't even know where this was supposed to be set, but it feels more almost like old money Europe than it does sort of like even parts of New England. I don't know. It's so there's this sort of like super old money family. They have this huge house, rambling house with all these different rooms and maids, hallways and all this crap, servants' quarters, whatever. But they get married.
Hallways, John? They had hallways in this house?
No, but you know what I'm talking about? The like sort of the secret.
But much like
passageways?
John's building, they were separate hallways for the poor people. That's what he's trying to say.
Yes. In any event, so they get married, and after the wedding is over, they sit Grace down and they sort of tell her, "Hey, we have to play this game, and we have to play this game because it's part of our agreement with Labale. And the game is she has to select a card. Whatever game comes out on this card, again, they run this gaming empire. They will play as a group, and at the end of the night, like they all go their separate ways, and now she's part of the family. The problem is she picks the one card that, when picked, essentially means that there has to be a sacrifice, and so she picks hide and seek. So they tell her, we're going to play hide and seek, and she has to survive to the morning. At first, she thinks they're just kind of joking around, but she then realizes there's a lot of murderation in this game. There's some accidental deaths. And she essentially, the rest of the film essentially becomes the family hunting her throughout this house, and she's trying to survive. Yeah, I would say a big part of the movie is whether or not the LaBelle stuff, like the family believes it's real,
But-
and like the movie though doesn't have any fantastical elements to it. It's very much sort of just a straight up, almost like a thriller, as opposed to there's no supernatural.
Well, it's an
elements to it,
interesting
so-
tension because they only theoretically know it's like there's no evidence to them that it's real other than the fact that they're still around.
No, and obviously we'll get into it. I mean, yeah, it's very much like religion in that way, right? Like they believe it, and so it's real to them, and they are murdering a lot of people and committing all kinds of misdeeds in trying to kind of keep
I wouldn't say a
on the good
lot.
side.
I'd say several.
Several people die,
Yeah.
so
I'm not sure they would consider the maids people though, John. So
Oh.
Fair. I don't know.
Wow.
They were all very upset
He's
about it.
pretentious
Yeah.
now.
yeah.
Fitch
I'm not.
said that first one was his favorite.
Yeah, because she
The father said that
because she
too,
liked the way she danced or something. Oh God. Okay, let's talk about it, Cece.
I really liked it. I was pretty excited when I saw trailers for it, and I definitely I saw it on an early Saturday afternoon, and I was not prepared for. I mean, like, look, I'm all about enjoying, a lot of blood splatter. I'm totally fine with that, but I was not prepared for the like really up close nitty gritty goriness of this movie. Not that I disliked it; it was just I was not prepared for it. But overall, I thought the story. I mean, it doesn't do anything new, but I thought the story was really fun, and I thought Samara Weaving was amazing. I'm all about her primal raging screams throughout this movie, and yeah, I thought it was handled really well for, kind of a campy premise.
Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much in line with CC. I saw it at 11 on Sunday. And from the trailer, I didn't really expect it to be as gory as it was. So that was a pleasant surprise. There's a few parts in this where I kind of feel like it gets lost, but nothing that kind of throws everything off for me. I also enjoyed Sigourney Weaver. I forget her name.
Yeah,
Samir-
that's
Sigourney Weaver. Wow. That was a
they're
blast from the
related. I'm pretty
past.
sure.
Yeah.
No, you
I
know
thought
who
she was
that
great.
is. Samara Weaving is Hugo Weaving's daughter. He was of the Matrix. He's like
Yeah.
Is
Mr. Smith.
it really? his
Yeah.
daughter?
Mr. Smith.
What?
Because she's Australian. They're both
Yes.
Australian, and also
Um,
related.
I
But I-
don't know if you're kidding. It's
No, I'm
Cece's
not
last
joking.
name.
No,
I'm not
no,
joking.
he's being serious. That's really his daughter.
And we saw
my
her. We
God.
did that movie where she's like a babysitter, and then there's like vampires or
Babysitter?
some shit.
I believe it's called Babysitter.
What's that movie with the babysitter? You know.
And she was in that other one, right? Mayhem.
Mayhem,
That
yeah.
we watched. Which I mean, I've liked her in everything that she's done. I know we kind of had mixed reviews on both of those. But no, I thought this was a lot of fun. There's definitely some pretty humorous moments. The guy that married into the family, I forget. You guys just said his name, Fitch. Yeah, I really enjoyed his character. You know, he's not in it a ton, but he definitely had some. He was by far like the most comic relief of this entire thing. So yeah, I mean, like Cece said, it doesn't do anything crazy. It's kind of a mix of Clue and just surviving the game, like Eric mentioned. But
And sort of like You're Next.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good call.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall, I was a big fan.
John.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I was very excited for this. I feel like we got this trailer for like 4 months in the theater, and so we had seen it a ton of times. It's just really well done. It's like it's a fun script. It's like pretty breezy. It's funny, and we can get into it. There's actually like a lot of plot. There's a lot of things that are going on. Like as much as you want to describe this movie as hide and seek the movie, it's not really that at all. And the like actual mechanics of what the family needs to do and yada yada like gets a little complicated. But the directors, so I should have mentioned up front, the directors probably best known to everybody. They did one of it's a pair, and they did one of the segments of the VHS films And there's been a couple other things.
Southbound too, I think, right? Did you?
Yeah, yeah, they did do Southbound. Yeah, so they're sort of like horror guys, and similar with the screenwriters, they're kind of horror people. Like, so there's like a lot of talent here. The cast I thought was great, and listen, It's funny because it's a pretty big cast, and there's a lot of characters in the family. But you have Andy McDowell, you have the dad, who's kind of one of those, like, that guy, kind of actors. But I thought he was great. Adam Brody, who's like, where the hell's Adam Brody been? But he was really good.
The dad's like the poor man's Ray Wise.
Yeah, he's younger than Ray Wise. Like he could still be Ray Wise.
So there you go. Now you're like, oh, we want Ray Wise, but not so old. This guy.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, but yeah, and then obviously, I mean, like top to bottom, I think they did an amazing job of taking a pretty big cast, but making them all feel like characters, as opposed to just like rich assholes that are all running around trying to kill people. Everybody kind of has their own little moment, but it's like enough without being too much. Because the movie's it's 90 minutes long. Like it's a pretty quick little romp. And Samara Weaving's great. You guys blew my mind that she's Hugo Weaving's daughter. I mean, like,
yeah,
that dude, like, he couldn't play anything that wasn't a robot.
I mean, how many Australians do you think there are, John?
I mean, there's like kind of a lot.
12.
They make a
More
lot of
than
movies
two.
down there.
It's a tiny island.
Guy
We've only
Pearce
got
is
one
from
road,
Australia.
John. It's hard to get back and forth to make love to.
Do you think that actress still listens?
So yeah, I don't know.
I'm with everybody else. I managed to catch this on my one random like vacation day where I was just alone all day. So I like went to the movie by myself. I was in the old haunt. Joe, I sent Joe a picture of our hometown mall. He said I wanted me to look for drug rugs for him. And
Traders.
but yeah, it's just so fun. It's really funny. It's really kind of sharp, like biting satire about rich people. Like, we can talk about it. I don't know how much, I don't think it's got a lot of like heavy political ideas it's foisting at you, but it basically is, it definitely is starting from the premise of like, hey, rich people are shitty assholes, and this is a movie about it, but also some like murder and some spooky stuff. And the brilliant thing I think the script does is that we kind of find out through all this like these sort of info dumps, not info dumps, but you know what I mean, this context given throughout the film, that they've only had to do this one other time in living memory, and that was in like maybe the 70s or 60s, maybe let's say 70s. But like even then, it was only really the older people in the family who were involved in it, and the two boys were like very little kids and didn't really have that much to do with it. So like,
well, we see it. It's like a preview, or not a preview. It's like a intro sequence,
right? Because of the random nature of the draw, right? Because otherwise, if you did this with everybody that you married into the family, like your family wouldn't grow. So the idea is that sometimes you just play like Monopoly or some shit, like whatever, one of their dumb games. And then this is random, like I guess, like, and then every once in a while,
it's whenever LaBelle decides he needs a
right. Every once in a while, it's like, oh, we need a sacrifice. But like nobody in this family has ever done it really, except for the father, and like. That's what's
the grandma. I mean, in the aunt.
Well,
right,
but she didn't really participate in it because she was the bride. I mean, we kind of
no,
found out.
She was the one that had
she's
to
the one that
kill,
had to kill the husband.
Yeah,
she does. Yeah,
she's
she
the
had
bride.
To kill her husband. They caught the husband, and she killed him.
Right.
Yeah.
But she didn't want to, I guess, is my point. Like she didn't like hunt the guy. But my larger point is just that like the majority of people in the house have never done this, or like don't really know how to kill somebody, and that's where all the comedy in the film comes from. Like, I just like I want to harp on that point, because if one little change in the script, right? If they have done this all the time, it turns into a different movie, because then like they to some level know how to kill. Whereas like the reason why this movie is so funny is because these people are bumbling, and like there's this brilliant scene. It's in the trailer where, and it's actually like a note they hit on several times, with the guy in the bathroom looking up like, learn to love your crossbow or whatever.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know how to kill people, and like because they are using like hilariously old-timey weapons for no reason in particular too. Like some of them,
Well, no, they said they had to use the old weapons because they were using the same weapons that the great grandfather had at the time he made.
But it's just like more at the end of the day, it's just more opportunity for comedy because they're using these like stupid things to try to kill people. it's like to Cece's point, it's really nasty and a lot of like gory. It's violent and gory. Samara Weaving gets to like kick ass in it. By the end of it, it's like she's like ripped the bottom half of her dress off and she's like covered in blood and she's wearing like Chuck Taylors or some shit and just kicking ass. And it's a lot of fun to watch. And yeah, I think it moves pretty well too. It's like a pretty breezy 90 minutes, and the finale is bonkers. Not to call back to last week's show, John, but the finale.
Well, and let's save it because to me, like,
Yeah.
I mean, we can get into it later, but like, I think the ending makes the film, But we can talk about it.
So yeah, it's great.
Mm-hmm. Casey, what did you think?
Casey, what'd you think?
I love it. I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a blast. I mentioned over email, there's a part, and we'll get into it later. There's a part where this movie feels a little stretched. It's not a long part. It doesn't cut down on it. I think maybe if it changed anything score-wise, it dropped from like an A to an A minus, if that. Other than that, I thought this movie was great. I love the idea. I was not expecting the gore they went for, which was a nice surprise, and it was a lot of fun. And some of the stuff that we've hinted towards it and whatnot with LaBelle and everything and the nature of their pact, I didn't expect them to go all in on that, and they sure as hell did, and it was pretty cool. So which led to the ending, as we hinted at, is pretty bonkers, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to. Well, I was going to hit on one of the things Eric kind of brought up, which is that the family. So they're presented. Obviously, they're presented as like super rich, like pretty out of it, like out of touch. They don't seem like regular people, right? They're the sort of like idol rich.
All you had to say was super rich, John, and that's.
But here's the point I was going to make is like they're not presented as sort of unlikable. Like they're. Yeah. The father, Andy McDowell, has like a couple moments where she connects to Samara Weaving and like talks about how much she likes her and is herself like not from sort of like, so the family, not only are they bumbling in their execution of this thing they need to do, but they also like it's not that they want to do it. They're not bloodthirsty. And that's what also, I think, this movie has such an interesting tone because it's I don't know if I would go so far as to call it a comedy, but it kind of is. I mean, it's a super black comedy, and it's played very. It rides like a different type of tone than we see even in other sort of black comedies or horror movies that want to go in this direction. And look, I think it's a tough thing to pull off, and to have all of those characters, I sort of mentioned this, feel like real characters, because that's like the real achievement. I don't know, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, I think they do a good job of kind of making it a mixed bag, right? Like, because the aunt is like all in, and the father to like an extent.
Dude, she is so
wacky, right? Like,
dude. The like little
wacky.
comic beats during the wedding of her just giving Samara Weaving the death
Staring.
stare were so good. I loved how
So
like
good.
they linger on it too, like when they walk down the aisle at the end, like back down the aisle, and she's just like, just doing it.
She doesn't
But
stand up
she
and
doesn't
clap
stand,
like what
yeah.
everyone does. It's great.
Just like
She's
lots
like
of
that with
like
the whole family.
this movie has a lot of great comedic timing in it that I wasn't expecting. Like they really lean into those comic bits a lot.
Yeah.
So I should have mentioned it when we were doing initial discussions, but am I the only one? Because I know Eric mentioned it didn't bother him, but like I felt like the camera work was like aggressively shaky in a lot of the scenes.
I didn't
Did
even
that
know- I
not
didn't even-
bother anybody?
No,
I didn't
I
even
didn't
notice it.
that.
Were you watching a cam version
think
of this?
the camera person might have just been fucking with you, and you were watching them.
Maybe
Like
like,
the person, sorry, the person working the like projector, I should say.
Were you watching a cam version?
maybe my theater is just
Joe's like,
bootleg.
why was there a guy in the corner getting popcorn? I don't
I
understand.
did have a lot of coffee that morning, so it also could have just been me. shaking
No, honestly, like
uncontrollably.
I didn't. I'm not. I didn't really
That's-
notice. I don't know.
It's
why.
weird because there were certain scenes where I'm like, "Is this like a fucking joke? Like I can't watch this." And
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
maybe
I
it's
didn't
just
notice it. Maybe you had somebody behind you kicking your seat and you didn't know.
No.
One
No
of those people.
Yeah, I mean, so the other thing that this movie does really well, I think, is it gets a lot of emotional interaction or sort of emotional. There are little mini arcs throughout the film, right? So, and Eric kind of talked about the progress I think that Samara Weaving goes through, or the sort of arc that she has to go through. But we also get Adam Brody. We get the sort of main brother. There's a weird element where you have Samara Weaving, and then everyone else in the family is like almost equally important You know, like the dad has his own thing, Andy McDowell has a thing, but they all do get these little mini arcs, and they play off each other really well, right? Like the two brothers, in some ways, it's like the next most important relationship, and obviously a lot of that comes up. The one criticism I would have is like I do feel like the middle act they focus a lot on the sort of action, and then when you get to the end of the film, they do a lot of sort of like catch up with like,
Sure.
oh, the mom is going to connect with the younger brother now, and they teed some of that up. You know, oh, the two brothers are going to try to reconcile the fact that they're kind of living in this evil family, and you know, but at the same time, like it's at least teed up enough so that once you get through a lot of the action and the gore and the comedy, it doesn't feel super forced, even though it does feel a little rushed at times.
Right. Yeah, who is that, the younger brother, the alcoholic brother? Like, what do I know him for? Was he on like the OC or something?
Yeah, he was in the OC.
Adam Brody.
He's so dreamy. I need more of that guy in my life.
He was in Jennifer's Body.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't see that. The other dude,
I forgot he was the gothy like singer.
the
in
other
that.
dude is fine as an actor, but he was a really annoying character on *Halt and Catch Fire*, and so every time I see his face, I just want to punch him.
Bitch was a big part of Orphan Black too. So I mean, a lot of these people are coming from pretty big franchises and stuff. So it's kind of cool to see them be able to mix it up like that too. I mean, you know, somebody as big as Andy McDowell, who as big as she was.
Yeah,
in the
I mean,
80s.
she's really like, I feel like Andy McDowell is the in some ways the standout, but it's like, again, it's the fact that this movie got that caliber of actor, I think, is a really big deal. Because like she, you know, she's not as big as she used to be, but she's a name. You know what I mean? Like she's got to be the biggest name in this movie.
And
Shots
she's not
fired.
usually. She's done some black comedy stuff like with Scrooge and stuff, but not as dark and gory as this did. So it's kind of cool to see her stretch out.
She did Groundhog Day. I mean,
She's so good,
a
and
black
I
girl,
like
I
her
guess.
arc too, because like John's saying, like how every one of the rich people, like she's not the most important character, but she still gets this little journey of like, you know, she, like John said, she was also not well to do and married into the family and had to fight to be accepted, and she gives Samara Weaving this little pep talk, even knowing like we could have to hunt and murder you later, and then but you know, like, and then she makes the flip, because once it happens, even though she kind of liked her, it's like, well, this is what we have to do now. And so I liked her arc was interesting.
well, and I mean, if I had to pick a favorite moment, I mean, other than the like final kind of end of the film, the sequence where Annie McDowell gets got by Samara Weaving it's like super brutal, and it leads to, in some ways, like the most emotionally resonant moment of the film, where you know you get sort of the turn or the kind of conclusion of Alex's arc. That to me, I thought that was a great moment. I mean, it's not really an Andy McDowell moment so much as her face getting caved in type of situation. But I just thought that stuff, like, to me, that's like an emotional moment that you don't get in a lot of horror movies. I mean, you just don't. There's not a kill that has that kind of emotional resonance in it in most movies that are this gory, I guess is another way to say it.
Yeah. I mean, it's juggling a lot, like a lot of themes, a lot of like very different tones, and that's kind of where it shines, is in juggling that stuff.
Well, I think they probably, you could say that they loaded a lot of the emotional parts of this movie on Andy McDowell too. There was a part early on in the movie, and I don't remember when they first drew the card and hide and seek started, and I can't remember who she's with. I want to say it was Fitch. It might have been the sister, but at one point Andy McDowell says, you know, I don't want to do this either, but we don't have any choice. That was kind of the mark that that shifted your view on this family, that, you know, they're not necessarily evil or bloodthirsty and whatnot. So I thought that was a nice touch too.
Yeah.
Well, it's Andy
That they use her
McDowell,
for.
and then it's with that guy from the OC. Like, he is definitely kind of torn between this whole thing. Like, not to spoil anything, but like later in the film, we kind of see like how torn he is, and then you kind of have this. You know, at a certain point, do you think the husband's gonna eventually flip? Like,
I mean, the two brothers are very layered. Like, the alcoholic brother goes through so many different, and I think it all works. Like, you kind of don't know where his head is at any given moment, and even he doesn't, which is what's interesting. The you know, Cece, I'm kind of interested in your take on this, like with the husband, right, or the fiance, husband, man, person. Like,
They're married now.
It's really interesting. I kind of felt like an older version of this movie would just try to convince us that it's okay and she should just get back with the husband, or like they would be just together at the end. But and this movie kind of teases that, but I almost just feel like in 2019, when you think about what he sort of willingly brought her back into, it's like, I don't know. I don't want to kind of spoil the end, I guess, until we get to it, but I thought it was interesting. And I think they kind of end up in a place by the end where I'm like, okay, that's kind of how I guess I would like this to play out. But it's interesting because there's points of the movie. I guess my point is there's points of the movie where they're like, oh, they're like, he's helping her. Like everything's, it's cool. Like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's some layering to his character that you learn from from the aunt, like further, like kind of like peppered throughout the movie. So I think when you start realizing that he's like this prodigal son who, yes, the family wants him like back in the fold, but then there's also this other layer of what exactly it would mean to have him back in the fold. So I feel like the ending really only left you the option of what happened, or her saying, yeah, sure, we can stay together, and then her killing him as like a double cross. So, I think that they handled it great. Like
Although really, I guess like in the end, it kind of doesn't matter because of where we.
I mean, it doesn't.
Well, really,
I guess I found myself wondering, like, where is this movie going to leave her in regards to him? Because like, what he, even before there's like a turn, like what he has done by just bringing her here to marry her is really messed up. And I feel like, but then the movie largely, I think, for portions of it, wants you to want him to help her and her to take his help, and like, but it's again, it's there's nothing wrong with it. It's just another interesting, like, very layered part of the script.
This is where, so it's a little weird, and this is where there was one thing that I felt like, at least in the script, felt a little unresolved, because so my read on their relationship is that I think it was actually real, right? Like so Alex and Grace, like he actually did love her. He like wanted to marry her, and look, like to your point, Eric, like it had been 30 years since they'd had to play this game. So they've had 30 years of like, and so he knew he was like rolling the dice. But if the odds are like 1 in 30 that you get to like live your life with the person you love for the rest of your life, so fine. But really quick, like the one thing that was a little weird to me was the whole fact that she was a orphan, and like because to me that was like a thing that he was almost like selecting her.
Yeah.
But here's how I read that, though.
The other brother's wife was also like, she came from a really bad background because she talks about how poor she was and she's never going back. But I think that, like, I mean, there's a lot at work. Like, I mean, if you really want to talk about like subliminal like influences, I mean, he could be selecting her subconsciously because she doesn't have a family, but also because like LaBelle knew that eventually this all would happen.
But I actually think, I don't know, I think the script actually totally explains this, because I don't think he ever wanted to bring her back to, I think he was really in love with her, and I don't think he ever wanted to come back to his family. But she says to him, or she says to Minnie Driver, like, he understood how important it was. I think, to me,
Annie McDowell?
Sure. To me, to me, the movie is suggesting that she basically dragged him back to his family because she wanted to get married so much. He seemed very reluctant, and she says specifically, she says specifically
the mom
that
tells her, she's like, please bring him back. And Grace says to the mom, like, I'm so excited to have a family of my own. So like,
but
there is a moment
right? She says
before the wedding,
she says
where
specifically,
he's like, let's
like,
get out of here.
She says specifically, like, I wanted a family of my own, and he understood it. And so I felt like he had to, in order to keep her, he had to give in, agree to marry her, bring her back to his family, in the hopes that you just draw that Monopoly card or whatever.
Well, and I mean, if you go back to the beginning of the movie, like the older brother, Adrian, whatever his name is, Brody. What is
Adrian Brody?
It's Adrian Brody. Yeah.
Adam
Brody. He hid Alex, I know, whatever his name is. The drunk brother hid the younger brother in the armoire when it was happening. So, I mean, you could argue that, like, he didn't really know how intense it would get, or he never really saw, like, how far his family would go. But he also tells her when he's like, okay, well, now we have to go play this game. I mean, it seems like he was relatively truthful in the fact that he's like, you don't have to win. It's just the fact of playing the game. So you know, it kind of leads you to believe that like he didn't really think that like it would go that far,
Right,
or that it would
because
require like a full
it
sacrifice.
had been 40
See-
years or whatever, right? So chances
Yeah.
are, like, the chances are kind of decent that you'd be all right.
I think they kind of gave us an answer with this with Daniel, because at one point somebody mentions about her when I can't remember if it was when Grace was trying to talk him in to help her or not, but he mentioned, he's like, what am I supposed to do? Let everybody in my family die? Which you figured that's something that's weighing on Alex's mind too. He's in love with this girl. He doesn't want to take her back, but nobody really knows what happens if they don't pull through for this, and he feels responsible for not for letting his family, whatever bad happens to his family, happen if he doesn't go back. So there's probably some of the
Yeah.
pressure and guilt from that too, I think. And it makes sense that the brothers you could extrapolate that the brothers would have the same thoughts on that, because they showed them as being so close when they were young.
I think it's what's cool about the movie, though, is that it opens itself up for this much discussion
Oh,
about
yeah.
character motivations, and like I think it does a really good job of like trickling out this information throughout the movie. It's like slowly building you a picture of who these characters are and what we think they're going to do. Then in the finale, then it's able to take all those blocks and then play around with them, basically. You know what I mean?
Should we talk about the finale? We haven't really.
Do we want to get into it?
Sure.
So this is heavy spoilers ahead. So the the ultimate reveal comes when they fail to kill Grace before sunrise. So
Sigourney.
yeah, so they're racing. Sigourney survives. There's lots of sort of, the ending has a couple. It gets a little bumpy because there's like a couple of failed attempts to perform this ritual, but eventually she gets out. The sun rises, and there's this moment where they all look at each other and they're like, "Oh wow, like we didn't kill her before sunrise, and we're fine." And so, wow, that was really silly. I can't believe we did all that. And then like a full beat, or like maybe even 2 beats, or a nice long beat, and somebody just legit explodes.
Yeah. It's
And then-
it's like minutes in between. Like it's actually a great little, because then there's other like things
Oh, the
happening,
timing
and
was
then
amazing.
suddenly
Yeah.
it's like
Well, and so that, then the next person explodes, and the next person, and they all realize like, oh no, like the LaBelle thing is 100% real, and yeah, we're all fucked. So yeah, I mean, to me, it's so interesting, right? Because I loved this ending. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was the perfect way to end this film. It's funny because it colors the rest of the film in like a really interesting way, because if you were at any point questioning the family's motivations, you have to, in retrospect, be like, oh wow, they really should have tried much harder to kill her, because
Yeah.
like this was like 100% they had to do that. And so that said, like I just think for them to, like, there's a lot of ways they could have ended this movie, and this was like in some ways like the most extreme ending. And it's just like the ending, it's almost like it's like the darkest ending too. And yeah, so I loved it. And so at the end of the movie, you're left with Sigourney, Grace, standing just covered in gore, because everyone in the room has just exploded, including, and we don't see them explode on screen, but there's like a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old
Yeah.
who like
Yeah.
run
Which
out
are
of the
little
room.
shits.
they
should
do
have
that though.
exploded.
They're really cute about how they do that, like because
Yeah.
the kids just
Yeah,
run out
I
of the
do
room and then
appreciate it
immediately
off screen,
explode.
but still, they were little shits.
I don't think. Did we talk about? Was it their mother was also hysterical in this
She
movie?
was like the drug addict one.
Completely coked up, and like she's the one that keeps accidentally killing people, and like
Yeah.
it's
That was,
comical.
like, the
'cause the father's
sister,
like,
yeah.
"Why don't you go like sit this next one out?" And
Well, and I love Fitch is like, let's go find a gummy to balance you out.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's great.
she was great. Yeah, the two of them were awesome. But yeah, I mean, I like the ending too. Like I did not see it coming, like completely. Like I kind of thought when they start scanning around the room and everyone's like, "Oh shit!" Like we've been trying to murder her and nothing actually happened. Like I thought that was the ending, which I thought would have been fun too. But then when they actually explode, it was such like an oh shit moment. Like I thought it was great. I loved that.
Oh yeah. I was totally
Well,
bought into
and-
that long pause.
Yeah, and I appreciate like the flash of paranormal that happens after the like real finale.
Yeah.
Like it was just enough, and her reaction was just so. I mean, like everyone in my theater was cracking up afterwards. So I appreciated it.
It was, yeah. It's so crazy that they went like full on. Just we're doing
They just
it.
they leaned into it hardcore.
Yeah.
But I feel like had they not, I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. Like I would have been like, this is, I mean, I've seen it done kind of similar before. So I appreciated that, like, yes, it's batshit. Yes, like it's just, I mean, it's over the top, but I mean, it's worth it. It pays off.
Oh yeah, the timing of it was good too because you actually got to see her get closure with
Oh,
her
yeah.
new husband too. So the way that it wasn't all at once, that everybody went all at once and whatnot, and so you're just waiting for it to happen to see how it. And then when they tied it in with the music that's playing in the background because the record player had started playing again, it was counting down and everything, and it timed it perfect with when she threw the ring at him and whatnot.
Yeah. It was good.
The one thing that bothered me though is even though Dad woke up in the room, none of them seemed to give a shit that the mansion was on fire.
Right? I mean, I guess they were just really
Even though he
worried
woke
about
up in the room,
exploding.
right? I did love I loved the father's slow turn from like completely put together patriarch to just like lunatic, like just losing his mind, and not just not like losing it in a funny, like he was becoming hysterical, and his wife kept having to be like, honey, take a moment. That was so fun.
Yeah.
But he was right. He was right all along.
Yeah. No, but it was just so funny, dude. I like that because he starts out as the stereotype of what you think of that patriarch is, and then it just totally gets broken down into like I don't know, like a crying child at some point. It's just funny.
I did like Fitch's second Google search that we saw him doing is it deals with the devil bullshit.
Yeah, I liked that.
We
That was
also,
good.
I loved the one-on-one with her and the butler, and I loved how the whole scene when he thinks she's knocked out in the back seat, and he's like composing, he's like rocking out to this classical music, and he's
Oh my
still on FaceTime, and they see her waking up, and oh my god, that whole scene was just hilarious. Like, and they're just like, oh, like just great comedic timing in this movie.
Yeah.
No, I mean, for me, this was I thought it was a really solid movie. I was having a great time, and the ending just it took it so over the top for me. I mean, it's like one of the most memorable endings I can think of. I walked out of the theater. I was like looking around, like, did anybody else see that? Like, what is happening?
I bet
so
everyone in that
awesome.
theater did. Joe.
Very nice. Hey,
Some of them might have been necking, Joe. Who knows?
Did you guys watch the scene during the credits?
No.
No, there was a credit scene.
No, there wasn't.
No,
I
there
didn't see
wasn't.
it either.
There wasn't. Because I actually hung out and then was the last person in the theater, and there was no scene.
There's a site that tells you. I always check that. I always forget to check it before I sit down, and then frantically do it like as the credits start rolling, and the like cleanup people are just staring at me.
Yep. That's exactly
I mean,
what I do.
we've talked about it before, but we just need a moratorium on any credit scenes, or if they need to start 5 seconds after the credits start, and that's
I'm
it.
fine with that. Totally.
None of this
Fucking
like 10
Marvel.
minutes
It's
later
like it's bullshit.
It's Marvel bullshit. Yeah, it's totally true.
I mean, yeah. No.
All right, Joe, we're gonna break here and then do my top 10 on the other side.
Okay, sure, but
All right, guys, would you recommend this, Casey,
Absolutely.
Cece,
Yeah, definitely.
Joe,
yeah, very much.
John?
Yes.
5 thumbs up from Bloody Good Horror. We'll be right back.
Oh, I do enjoy an evening with a little light entertainment. But when your video heads get dirty, you lose your picture. Not a pretty sight. Happily, this new Polaroid video cassette will help you. It actually cleans your heads as it plays, so dirty heads needn't haunt you. New Polaroid video cassettes. Get the picture?
Hi, this is Doug Bradley Pinhead from the Hellraiser movies, welcoming you to Bloody Good Horror.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. Gotta clean them heads, John.
Hate the dirty heads.
Yeah, no dirty
I
heads.
remember those things though. You had to buy and you had to run them through.
I don't think we ever used them.
Yeah, I think you could rent them. A lot of video stores would rent them.
Yeah, I think
it was like they were like discounted or something.
I think we owned one, never used it once. I like a dirty.
Polaroid.
I like a dirty.
How didn't that
dirty
company
head.
survive?
I like a dirty picture in my VHS, John.
Yeah, I know. You like it nice and filthy.
Joe, what's my top
Yes,
10?
ma'am.
What does my top 10 look like right now?
So you right now you have a top 6, nothing below. You have Midsummer, Us, Climax, The Wind, Lords of Chaos, and Happy Death Day to You.
I would say this is above Lords of Chaos and Happy Death Day to You.
All right, so number 5, you're gonna put this. So that would be Midsummer, Us, Climax, The Wind, and then this.
Sure. Oh boy. Okay.
You didn't think this was better than The Wind, huh?
Oh gosh. Yeah. Bump it above The Wind. That's fine.
All right.
No, I'm just
Oh
like
boy.
John. I think I might have a dark horse, my number 1 this year. I think I might rearrange those, but I don't want to talk about it.
Jesus Christ.
I feel it
The suspense
happening.
is gonna
I
kill everyone
feel
for
it boiling in my
2 seconds.
loins, and I just like I got to build up to making the decision.
Yeah. I'm excited that
I hope it's Climax.
usually at the end of the year I struggle to put together a top 10, but I got like 3 spots left, and I think we're gonna nail that by the end of the year.
All right. I mean, we're getting down to it here. Nitty gritty. Spooky season.
Yeah, we got Ma coming next week, guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Whew. It too after that.
Oh, yes.
I'm so excited.
There's a lot of this movie Parasite. I'm very excited for the yeah. So yeah.
Eric, you forgot to put Crawl on your list, so you technically only have 2 spots left.
No, that's fine. It's fine. What are we doing right now? Fan mail. There's no email, John.
All right.
So who's got Twitter?
You seem angry about that. I got some tweets here. We used 2 hashtags. First one being BGH Classics. That's if you're listening to an old episode, something tickles your fancy. First one from Slanderous Gent, and he mentioned he's not a patron. You don't have to be in order to send in BGH Classics by any means. It's Twitter. It's open to the universe.
And we love all of our listeners. Just to be
Yeah.
clear,
I think
we
we usually just say patron because they're the ones that have access to the back episodes, so we just assume they're the ones who are doing their thing. But this is actually one from Mark and I. I'll say it's Rob Zombie's 31 episode. I don't have the number in front of me, but Joe says, did they ask for a 13 but they drew a 31? And Mark simply replies, fuck you, Joe. It's a little Offspring humor right there for you guys. Cece, you got that one?
I did. I'm not laughing.
Nice.
Oh.
Next
Do we,
up
wait,
from,
should we start talking about 6-packs here, or
from J Harrow? That's our friend Jake. Schnar says on budgeting, oh sweet, I have all this money now. And Eric replies, time to pay a visit to the whorehouse. Episode 314, Woman in Black.
well, you know.
You do.
all right.
Next up from our good friend Skizbot. I pretty much rip ass the entire show. Any guess on who that was?
That's me. That had to be
It could
me.
literally be anyone. So.
Yeah. That's Eric from
Yeah.
episode 155.
I don't
Tucker and Dale
anymore.
versus Evil.
I
don't want to generalize, but I would think Cece wouldn't make the comment. I
She might
rip
not
ass
say
the
that.
entire
Might
show.
not.
The thing is, Joe, I eat a lot of fiber, like a lot of roughage, just carrots and greens every day.
You're a delight to live with. Is
I don't
you
really
know,
fart
what I
anymore, though.
mentioned.
The thing is, the secret is that if you do it long enough, your body just gets used to it.
Yeah. I'll tell you what doesn't help is like the whole keto thing, because it's just there's
you got
not a
keto
lot of,
farts. Yeah, that's no good.
I swear to God, I'm like a goddamn constipated old man.
Smokestack.
Let's
Yeah.
move along.
No, I got more details to get into. Last but not least, from the BGH Classics, our good friend Flora Duhan. This is a back and forth between Eric and I. I don't generally care to support Canada. I'm assuming that was me. Is James? I don't generally care to support Canada. And then Eric replies, "Is James Franco Canadian?" Which I reply, he should be. Episode 234, Oz the Great and Powerful. Yeah, let's stick with it. James Franco can straight up go fuck himself.
Come on. Even with the deuce, I thought he would have won you back.
I generally struggle with the Deuce because I hate his guts, but I do love that show.
God.
Let's see what we got here. The other one we use is hashtag Ask BGH. That's if you got a question about the movie we're watching, just need some life advice, whatever tickles your fancy. Send it in with that, and we will answer it on the show. Another one from our good friend Slanderous Gent, sending an Ask BGH. Also, he said, nice to see Eric shopping his Toxic Avenger reboot last week, where he finds some toxic runoff bonkers candy in his backyard.
So good. I was at a rest stop and I wanted to take a picture of a whatchamacallit, because who was on the show last week saying they'd never seen, was it UCZ?
No, I think it was Sophie.
Oh, Sophie was saying she'd never had one
I
before.
know you can't tell them apart sometimes.
And then but I left my phone in the car, so it's a bummer.
Oh.
And then I was like, you know what? There's a million pictures of whatchamacallits on the internet, so I can just look one up. I don't need to take a picture of this
like
particular
wafer.
one.
It's like a wafer candy bar, right? If I remember right?
Yeah, like a crunchy rice kind of thing with nougat and chocolate and.
You know what you can't find out in the wild anymore is Nutrageous.
Those are pretty good, yeah.
Those are tough to track down. You go to Hershey, Pennsylvania, go to the Chocolate World Factory. You can get all the Nutrageous you ever want. Little pro tip from Joe there. Next up from John's favorite listener at COW Flanagan. Always just interesting to even try and read what the hell he's talking about. Which WITCH classic rocker would you most want love-making tutelage from? I gotta go with Rob Halford. He don't need no big-ass tongue to keep the lady satisfied like old Gene Simmons. That shit is gross. Oral, I mean. Much love.
I mean, I don't want syphilis, so I don't need like advice from old school rockers.
I mean, you don't.
I don't think you have to like have sex with them.
I don't think they show on you. Like they could just maybe draw pictures.
No, I'm just saying that's the road their advice is gonna lead me down. Is what I'm saying.
I don't know, Eric. You might be overthinking this.
No, I think you're underthinking it. Frankly.
Does anyone have an answer?
I'm not teaming this with
Yes, that is my answer. No, thank you.
I think what's that? David Coverdale from Whitesnake, the lead singer. I feel like he is, aggressive but respectful.
I mean,
but
aggressive but respectful.
You need someone to tootle.
He'll like throw you around, but only the way you want it.
But only if he'll ask first.
Yeah, he knows. He knows his audience.
I mean, Joe, do you need the tootle of an old school rocker to just figure that style out yourself? It seems like something you could just arrive to on your own. I don't understand this question. I guess is my point.
I don't want to get too deep.
I just want to know what instigated the question.
I don't know.
Oh, this guy's psychotic.
I mean, like, what were they doing that this like sexual awakening just spurred this, rabbit hole of Inquisition?
You mean COW Flanagan?
Yeah.
What that guy? I'd prefer not to know. All right, I think John. Nobody else has an answer?
No.
We should move on then. At Mike Snunian, our good friend, what would be a deal breaker for you before getting married if you found something heinous about your in-laws?
In-laws. Oh, I mean, I got out of a relationship not entirely, but the in-laws definitely had a lot of you're just looking at this family and you're like, oh, that's what I'm going to be a part of, huh? Great.
Yeah. I mean, I should go ask Leslie, my wife,
because you're the one with the problem in-laws.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, full-blown Trump supporters on my end.
Oh man, that's a hard one. There's I don't know. I feel like there's like a potential for a lot, especially if it's like if your fiance is like, yeah, we're gonna spend a lot of time with these people.
I feel like a lot of it is like you're looking for me anyway, right? Because like I don't know, like the personality stuff, you can kind of get around that, but I'm looking at like genetic red flags.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, I think
unless
as
you
long
don't
as-
want to propagate, in which case go
Well,
to 10.
presumably you've made it like deep. You've made it deep enough into a relationship with a person that you're like you're like cool, you're good with them. So it's really just like you're gonna have to put up with these other people in your
Yeah,
life now.
but
who-
there's other things in the family tree you may not be seeing from that one branch, is what I'm saying.
That's fair. I don't know. I feel like you're taking
Yeah.
that's a pretty.
My wife is adopted,
Two.
so
All
it
right,
doesn't
John.
apply.
John, if
Yeah,
you
there you
don't, John, if you don't want me to answer the questions, don't ask them.
All
Okay.
right. No, I mean, listen, Eric supports eugenics, and
Just
let's
because
move
I
forward.
actually think about them, it's fine if it's personal eugenics, John.
All right, let's move on. Next up from speaking of Sophie, one from her. That's at Phillies Femme. So, were you ready or not?
No, I was not ready
yeah,
for
no.
all
I
that
wasn't in-
gore.
Not for the hole in the
Especially
not for the
when
hole in the
that
hand.
little shit ass kid shoots her. I was
Well,
not ready for that shit. And the goat pit. How did we not talk about the goat pit?
Like,
Yeah,
The
we
fact
It was
that
like for
A,
5 minutes, it became a Rob Zombie movie.
yeah,
well, yes, and it was a little gag worthy. I was like,
yeah.
Well,
Okay.
and I mean, the whole kind of like body torture or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, body, yeah. I mean, look, it all worked for me. I was
Yeah.
good with it.
Well,
I'm
that's a
I'm
body
in for the goat
massage.
pit. If we have a sequel, I hope it's Ready or Not: goat pit.
Not back to the goat pit.
Back into the goat pit. Exactly. I'm
Mr.
in.
All right. Next up from at Chris Elante. It seems like Ready or Not has a lot going for it. What are some things, character types, humor, story beats, monsters, that if a horror movie does them well, makes you super happy?
You know what I appreciate these days? I appreciate just like a really tight 3-act structure that doesn't feel the need to give me like triple, quadruple endings. You know what I mean? Like
it doesn't
just,
waste your
yeah.
time.
yeah, but I mean,
And no
but like
ghosts.
there's,
No
but
fucking ghosts.
I feel like there's like a creep with modern movies where they can't just give you the regular 3-act structure. That's got to be all these false endings because they need to build you up to like the real finale. Like, be confident about what you're doing. Get in,
Eric,
get out.
You know what nailed that 3-act structure so much? The crawl. Just knocked that out of the park.
Mhm.
So tight.
Nailed it.
So tight.
I appreciate it if
No,
a movie can come in under an hour 40. Like I'm all for that.
Yeah.
I normally wouldn't say this is just because we were talking about it, I normally would not say like a twist ending because like I feel like so many times it goes wrong, but like if you nail the ending like this movie, that's it. I'm walking out freaking high-fiving random strangers. So there's something to be said for that.
Do you really high five random strangers?
I thought about it. They didn't really look like they wanted to
All right.
high-five.
You'd have to go wash your
I
hands
like
after though.
that you read the room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
I would
Very
never.
David Coverdale of you. I just love making style.
Good callback, Joe. I like
Thanks,
it.
bud.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, cuz. All right. One more here, I think, from at Cody Yolo. What you think of my top horror/thrillers of the decade so far? I'll even show you who they beat in consideration. And this is so he's got a top 7 here. It Follows, Get Out, Sinister, which apparently beat out Insidious and The Conjuring. The Ritual, which apparently beat out The Witch. Babadook, which beat out Hereditary. Evil Dead, the remake, which beat out Mandy. And The Conspiracy, which beat out Creep. What do you guys think of that?
I think I don't know. I think
To
you
each
should
their own
wait
is what I
and
think.
see what the bloody good horror list is.
I mean, going Ritual over The Witch is
No.
straight up cray. But
Yeah.
I think Creep's got. I mean, maybe not what do you give a top 7? That's a real weird number, bro. But if in a top 10, I think Creep's got to be in there.
it's an interesting approach too. I like Cody's thinking that it's like you're gonna pick one of a grouping of films. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
that's
I'm doing that, but I think that's an interesting way to approach
Well, that's
it.
what's nice about doing the top whatever we're doing, 20 or 25, is like you don't have to make those
Yeah,
sacrifices.
you can sneak stuff in toward the end
Mm.
there.
Oh, we do have one more. Sorry. If we're done reviewing Cody. And last but not least, from Drop Your Linen. Why did my best friend Sammy Krish choose to go see this movie with her husband instead of me? Was it somehow more satisfying for her to see it with him? Does he eat less popcorn than I do? Do I smell weird? Can I trust her? Please help. Asking for a friend, obviously. I think your friend Sammy is not really a friend at all. And
I thought that my headphones went out, and I thought that she said she was friends with Sammy Kershaw, and I was like, I'm sorry, what?
yeah, nope, just Sammy.
No one fucking knows who Sammy Kershaw is.
Don't I? I think I do. I think I do. He's a country singer, right?
Is he in the
Yes.
Is he in the Offspring?
Never mind. Let's just move on.
I was gonna say it could have been any of those things, or maybe some amalgam of all.
I'm going with the popcorn.
Queen of My Double Wide Trailer. I don't think I was a big fan of his. I'm sorry.
Whatever.
Oh, She Don't Know She's Beautiful. I did know that song. I'm sorry.
Too late now. The moment has passed.
You know what, Cece? Why don't you just not come next month? How's that?
Cool. Real cool.
That's it for tweets. Did we answer your question? Whatever. Let's.
I don't know, dude. Whatever. Show's over. We're done.
Eric's really hitting. He's hitting rock bottom over here.
Whatever, John. I answer questions. You don't want to hear my answers, okay? This is where I am.
You got upset about the eugenics situation, did you? Even you're thinking about that eugenics now.
I got upset 'cause I don't know what the fuck that means.
Mm.
A lot of tension here tonight, guys. Everything.
You know, I'm just tired. It's really hot here. All right, guys. What's this movie called? Ready or Not. 5 thumbs up. Next week, we're not sure what we're doing. It's not in the theater, right? But we got a couple.
No, we're doing
We're doing Ma.
Okay, so not in the theater was my question. God, John.
It is
What the hell?
amazing how Eric will backtrack if he's wrong at something. Like, if you ever listen to this,
We also decided on this like 2 weeks ago.
All I said was it's not in the theater, right? And you were like, it's Ma.
well, you said we don't know what we're doing next week.
I don't know what you guys are on. Whatever, dude.
Oh my god. All right.
We're doing Ma. It's that
Bring-
movie
bring
with
us
the
home
old.
here.
It's that movie where the old lady gets kids drunk. And yeah, BGH meetup in a couple of weeks. You can get in on this tension. It'll be great.
If we make it, it's gonna be a fun time.
All right, guys. In all seriousness, spooky time is right around the corner, so get excited. We are here for all your spooky needs. Hope you enjoyed the show.
PSL hit the shelves today. It's
Oh,
officially
nice.
spooky season
Very
according to
nice.
Starbucks.
Hope you enjoyed the show, guys. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Maybe see you next time. I don't know.
Bye-bye.